You have prayed. You have gone to Mass. You have meant it every time. And then Monday comes, and the same anger rises again. The same temptation knocks at the same hour it always does. The same secret struggle pulls you back like a current you cannot swim against. You are not failing because you are weak or faithless. You are not failing because God has given up on you. You are losing ground because you are in a war, fought wrong. St. Paul wrote from a Roman prison cell to the church in Galatia. He used one word that most translations quietly soften: antikemai. It is a military term, two armies on an open field. Neither retreating. Paul says that is exactly what is happening inside you right now. The flesh and the spirit are set against each other. At war. The flesh, sarx in Greek, is not simply your body or appetite. Sarx is your entire self-directed nature, wanting control without reference to God. Every human being born after Eden carries it. It does not negotiate. It does not take days off. It does not care you went to confession. Stay with me, because there is a reason the same temptation keeps returning. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what to do. Galatians 5:16. Walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the flesh. Not try harder, not feel more guilty, just walk, habit by habit. 6 habits drawn from Scripture and 2,000 years of Catholic tradition. These habits do not simply improve your spiritual life. They starve the flesh. Habit 1. Tactical prayer, not emergency prayer, but armor you put on before the battle. In Luke chapter 5, Jesus withdrew to desolate places and prayed, before the pressure hit. The Greek verb Luke uses is imperfect tense, meaning he kept doing it. Again and again. Not after the crowds broke him. Before they arrived. That is the pattern. The Church Fathers called it oratio, ordered speech reminding you that you are not in control. Augustine of Hippo spent years trying to win his internal war through willpower alone. Brilliant mind, extraordinary discipline, and he lost, every single time. It was not until he surrendered the first hour of morning that the ground shifted. If temptation finds you defenseless at 2 in the afternoon, ask what happened at 7. Prayer is not a feeling. It is armor. You cannot put it on mid-battle. Habit 2. Fasting, and here is what most people miss about it entirely. It is not primarily about food. It never was. The Didache, written around AD 80 to 120, is one of the oldest Christian documents outside Scripture. It instructed early believers to fast on Wednesdays and Fridays, not as suggestion, but formation. The early church understood what modern life has dismantled. The body must be taught who is master. Every system around you is engineered to satisfy every craving within seconds. Fasting breaks that loop. Moses fasted 40 days before receiving the law on Sinai. The body submitted to the Spirit. John the Baptist lived in deliberate deprivation, preparing himself to announce the coming Messiah. Lent is not a tradition invented by committees. It is structured communal fasting with a purpose. Fast one day this week, and pay attention to what rises when the craving is denied. That rising feeling is the idol. That is what the flesh has been quietly feeding on. Habit 3. And this is where the question from the opening finally gets answered. Why does the same temptation arrive at the exact same hour every single day? Because the mind is empty at that hour. And an empty mind has no ammunition. Romans 12:2. Be transformed by the renewal, anakinosis, of your mind. Anakinosis does not mean refreshed. It means completely remade, rebuilt around a different center of gravity. When Jesus stood in the desert after 40 days without food, he did not reach for willpower. He reached for Scripture. 3 times the enemy came. 3 times Jesus said, "It is written." That is not a spiritual cliché. That is a combat strategy used at the highest level. What are you feeding your mind between waking and the first temptation of the day? The Rosary, Lectio Divina, the daily Mass readings before the phone is ever unlocked. These are not devotional niceties. They are ammunition. Load the weapon before you need to fire it. Habit 4. Radical obedience, and Augustine said it more honestly than almost anyone. In his Confessions, he prayed, "Lord, make me chaste, but not yet." He knew exactly what God was asking. He simply kept negotiating the timeline. That is the flesh's favorite strategy. Not outright rebellion, delay, compromise. Just this once. Every small gossip, every half-truth, every moment you knew and chose to wait instead. The flesh gains leverage quietly, the way rust forms on iron you cannot see. One morning you reach for your faith and find it has less grip than before. But every act of obedience, especially unseen, especially costly, takes ground back from the flesh. Not all at once, one hard yes at a time. That is how the war is won. This is not about watching Catholic content or feeling spiritual on Sunday morning. Do the hard thing God told you to do yesterday. That one thing. Start there. Habit 5. Worship, but not the way most people think about it. David was hiding in a cave. His son had taken the kingdom. His advisor had betrayed him. He had lost the throne, the city, and the loyalty of people he trusted completely. And he sang, Psalm 63, "O God, you are my God, earnestly I seek you." Not written from a palace. Written from a cave, in the dark, with enemies closing in. David was not singing because circumstances improved. He was singing because worship shifts what you can see. Saint Teresa of Avila, doctor of the Church, wrote about this in her interior castle. She said the first movement of the soul toward God is always a deliberate choice. Worship is not primarily an emotion. It is an orientation, turning toward God instead of inward noise. The flesh makes your problems look like giants. Worship makes God look like the king he is. You do not need music. A decade of the Rosary in traffic is enough. The Gloria before a hard conversation. 3 sentences of praise before the email you dread opening. The flesh cannot hold its grip on a heart actively fixed on the King. Habit 6. And this is the one the enemy works hardest to destroy. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Bad company corrupts good character. Paul wrote it simply, almost bluntly. The Greek word for corrupts is phthero, to decay. To rot slowly from within. Not a sudden collapse. A quiet deterioration you do not notice until the structure is gone. David learned this at the cost of his entire kingdom. Ahithophel had sat at his table for years. The people closest to you are never neutral. They are either sharpening you or softening your edges. The Catholic tradition has always known that sanctification is never a solo project. Never. From the early church in Acts, to Benedict's monasteries, to your parish gathering every Sunday. 20 centuries of the same insistence, you cannot grow alone. Isolation is not humility. Isolation is the enemy's preferred operating environment, and he is very good at making it feel safe. You need a confessor. A priest in the sacrament of reconciliation who speaks absolution and direction. You need 1 or 2 people who know your actual life, not your Sunday morning version. People who love you enough to ask the hard question, even when it costs them something. If everyone around you is normalizing compromise, you will normalize it too. Slowly, without noticing. One day you look up, the standard has moved. And you moved with it. And no one said anything. Get the right people. Stay close to them. Your growth depends on it more than you know. Think about an elite athlete preparing for the most important race of their life. Someone who has trained for months, who knows race day is decided before race day. The morning of the race, that athlete does not eat junk food. Not once. Every input is controlled, because every serious competitor knows, Inputs determine outputs. Always. Why would spiritual warfare, the most important battle of your life, be any different? The flesh does not die in one dramatic moment. It starves, slowly, consistently, deliberately. 6 habits. Not 6 feelings. Not 6 resolutions forgotten by Thursday. 6 daily actions. Compounded over days and weeks. These habits shift the ground beneath you permanently. Takeaway 1. The war is real. Galatians 5:17 is not poetry, it is your condition. The antichemai, 2 armies against each other, is the reality of every serious Christian. If you feel the tension, that is not something wrong with you. Both sides are still fighting. The flesh resists most violently precisely when the spirit is advancing. Remember that. Takeaway 2. You are not fighting alone. The church exists because God knew you could not. The sacraments, the community, the confessor, the saints who walked this exact road before you. Teresa of Avila in her interior castle. Augustine in his long war with himself. David singing in his cave before the rescue ever came. They're your cloud of witnesses. You are surrounded by people who lost this battle for years, and then found the way through. Takeaway 3. The flesh demands everything and gives nothing back. Every time, without exception. But Galatians 5:22 describes what grows on the other side of this discipline. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. This is not a personality improvement list. This is the fruit of a life sarx no longer governs. This is not a story about being a better person or performing religion more carefully. This is not a story about earning God's approval through the right spiritual habits. This is a story about a war you were born into, and 6 ways to start winning. Pick one habit, just one. Pray before the pressure arrives tomorrow morning. Fast one meal this week and pay close attention to what rises up inside you. Read one psalm before you unlock your phone. Do the hard thing God has been asking. Turn toward Him in praise before you turn toward the problem waiting for you today. Find one person who will tell you the truth, and stay close to them. One habit, just one, starting tomorrow. That is all God is asking of you right now. Which of these 6 habits has God been asking you to take seriously, and you have delayed? Tell me in the comments. Not as a confession, as a declaration. Write it and mean it. Share this with one person fighting the same battle. They need to hear it today. Subscribe for more teaching rooted in Scripture and the full depth of Catholic tradition. May the God of every battlefield strengthen your spirit, starting today. Starting now.